How's it going, everybody? Lake Ranger here. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about the most underrated book of the Bible, the book of Acts. I'm going to be talking about why I think it's underrated, why I think it's a very cool and interesting book, and but before we get started, if you're new around here or you haven't done it yet, please, for me, consider hitting the subscribe button. And if you do subscribe, please share this video with as many people as possible. Thank you guys so much for watching. God bless and have a great day. Now, the book of Acts begins right as Jesus is departing, and he gives the disciples the Holy Spirit and tells them that they can spread it to baptize them with it. And then he goes on to say, make disciples of all nations. And then he also says that he's going to, he tells his disciples that he's going to prepare a place for them, make disciples of all nations. One day he's going to come back. Then the disciples meet up in a building to discuss everything that happened. They first discuss everything that happened with Judas. If you don't know, Judas betrays Jesus, and I guess also he betrays the 12 apostles as well. But they discuss his betrayal, and if you guys want to know more information on that, go check out my video on the man who betrayed Jesus. It goes into more detail on how I feel about that, how they feel about that. But then they replace him with a disciple named Barnabas, and now there are 12 apostles once again. They then do an event called the Day of Pentecost, which all 12 disciples, and I believe also Mary was there. Mary Magdalene was there as well. But they were all they all grouped up in Jerusalem and started preaching, and they were filled with so much of the Holy Spirit, so much Holy Spirit that they began to speak different languages, and they were preaching to everyone in each language, and so that everyone can understand it. In this event, Christianity into motion, because during at this time, they added 3,000 new disciples into their ranks, and will go on to make more disciples after this, which is a pretty awesome feat. We also get mentions that Peter and John both get arrested multiple times, and and they even try to kill him, but the angel of the Lord comes to them and gets them out of there. And then probably the most, but aside from probably Joseph, the most underrated character comes into play. Stephen. Oh my God, do I have things to say about Stephen. Stephen is the GOAT. The Stephen, if you don't know, Stephen is the first martyr of the church. And the way he goes out is baller. Like, I'm being 100% serious. It's hilarious how he just grills the Pharisees and Sadducees like they were on they were steak on a grill. If you thought that Jesus if you thought Jesus roasting the Pharisees and Sadducees were bad, uh, then Stephen grills them just as hard, and doesn't hold back with any fire. Like, my Lord, he tells the Pharisees about all the history, telling them telling them everything from Adam and Eve all the way till that moment, and tell them that it was his forefathers that got, put Jesus on the cross. It was them that killed all of the prophets of the Old Testament. It was them that it was because of them, you know, all the prophets and Jesus got put on the cross. Um, and then the Pharisees and Sadducees were so mad at this that they, without a trial, mind you, they dragged the man outside of the city, and they begin to stone him immediately, without a trial. I mean, it was already illegal for them to, crucify Jesus like they did. Like they did. This was even worse because this man didn't even go through a trial. They just started killing him because they hated him that much. And they begin, as they were stoning him, the man looks up into heaven and sees Jesus standing at the right hand of God. It's a beautiful moment, and he smiles and cries with joy, uh, and says, "I could see my Lord on the right hand of God," and he mirrors what Jesus did when he was on the cross. When Jesus is on the cross, if you don't know, he stares at the faces of his enemies, of all the people that are spitting on him and beating him and torturing him and killing him, and he looks at them and says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Stephen mirrors what he says and says, "Lord, do not add this sin to their charge." And after that, he fell asleep. Which, yeah, he's with the he went to the Lord after that moment, um, which is a very powerful message. Like, Peter, Paul, and all the disciples, they had nothing to lose. They 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 knew what they were dying for, and they were not afraid to die for spreading the gospel, spreading that Jesus has risen from the dead, that Jesus was the Son of God. They knew what they were doing, and they had so much faith that these guys willing to die for what they believed. And I give respect to any man or woman who dies for Christ, and then forgives the enemy that forgives the people that are killing them in the first place. Because to forgive the people that are killing you, that is what Christ-like means. But the book of Acts kind of goes through the disciples as they finally they have they have no waver anymore. Like in the Gospels, you can see they are a mess. They falter every single time Jesus is talking. They like once once they were going to the Jerusalem, uh, and Peter says to to the other disciples that we don't have that much bread, and Jesus tells them, uh, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees, and then Peter's like, oh, it's because we don't have bread, and then Peter and I'm surprised Jesus didn't smack the heck out of them for that, but like, you know, it's things like that. And then, of course, Peter also portrays Jesus by denying him 3 times. Um, but these guys come through and they really change. And the book of Acts shows you just how strong each of their faith is. Especially Peter. Peter really changes after Jesus forgave him in person, and he really fall he really comes through. In the book of Acts shows that. Not only does it show the development of the disciples in their character arcs, but it introduced right after Stephen gets killed, it introduced Paul. Well, not Paul, but it introduces a man named Saul, which, if you don't know from my St. Paul video, go check it out. Paul, Saul, Paul is my favorite character. Well, aside from Jesus, of course, but Paul is one of my favorite characters. Uh, Aside from Jesus, is my favorite character, and mainly because of, well, his transformation from an evil serial killer human trafficker to the leader of missions, to Saint Paul, the man the man who basically began the tradition to write down the Bible in the first place, the New Testament Bible in the first place, the man uh, that uh, out of all the disciples, the man that led the most people to Christ in his time period was Paul. And it's in introducing where he was at this time was very cool, because right after Stephen gets killed, Paul is right. Peter's like Saul is right there. He's watching him dying with a smile on his face. He doesn't understand why Stephen is smiling while he's being brutally killed, but he tells everyone that he's happy he's dead, basically. Um, and yeah, uh, and God looks at this man that's brutally killing innocent Christians and says, "I'm going to change his heart. I'm going to make that man the leader of missions. I'm going to make that man into Saint Paul." And he does. Jesus appears to him and 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 blinds him, and sends Barnabas to cure his blindness. And after he's cured, he goes right to work. He immediately starts preaching that Jesus is the Son of God, that Jesus rose from the dead, and everything that the disciples were already saying, and immediately makes himself a traitor and traitor to them all. And they immediately try to arrest him so they can kill him. And Barnabas and I forget, I think it was the James also helped out there. But anyway, uh, they help him escape so that he won't be killed. Uh, and when he comes back, he's already changed his name. Uh, but a lot happens in the Book of Acts. A lot of important information that like it shows the character growth of each of the disciples. It shows a complete 180 of Paul. It it shows us the first martyr of the church, the first hero of the church, mind you. Like Stephen is his death probably expired the others to go all in even further. Like they were already all in, of course, but Stephen really pushed them to another level. Now, why do I think this book is underrated? Unfortunately, it's because of where it is. Like it's literally right after the Gospels, which are the most important books because it goes over the birth, you know, life, teachings, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, which is again the per, uh, most important figure in the entire Bible, without any shadow of a doubt. I mean, it's his book in the first place. Like the book is all about him, uh, but the disciples, it gives us what the book of Acts is the direct sequel to the gospel. Like it is, and in the four gospels overshadow them by a mile. By a mile. And also, if you don't know, uh, the book of Acts was written by Luke, which technically is the direct sequel to the Gospel of Luke, uh, which is funny. And also, Luke is also associated with uh, Paul. Is a disciple of Paul, actually, and and goes on, and yeah. Uh, so there you go. But and it kind of also gets overshadowed by the letters of Paul, and as well. Like it's not even his fault because Paul's letters are very important, and I do really love Paul's letters. Even though you might be asking why didn't I mention any of Paul's letters? Well, I love them all, but they're not my favorites. You know, he's my favorite character. Don't get me wrong, and I and I and I feel every word he's saying, but Paul's letters are important, but they're not my favorites. Uh, if you know what I mean. But the Book of Acts is important because it gives us Paul's story. It gives us Stephen's story. It gives us Peter's story, John's story, all of the disciples and what they do afterwards. And it's it's only it's only underrated because of where it is. Like I consider Paul, like while like I said, the four Gospels. It's the book is all about Jesus, and Jesus is the whole book. So the four Gospels are just the most important books. Like it just is. But I would consider the Book of Acts to be just as important as Paul's letters, just as important as uh, just uh, important as the prophets of the Old Testament, because it's literally a disciple of Christ after the resurrection. So it's it's a very important book, it just gets foreshadowed by Paul's letters. It gets foreshadowed by uh, the four Gospels and Revelations, and even the prophets of the Old Testament. But even though I didn't quite make the top five, it in my top five Bible video, uh, it's still one of my favorite books. Like, I would consider that to be number six. To be honest with you, it's it's very good, and I really do enjoy them. The story of the Book of Acts, and if you do enjoy the Book of Acts, please leave a like button. Leave a like down below, and if you guys enjoyed this video at all, and or if you're new around here and you haven't done it yet, please consider hitting the subscribe button. And if you do subscribe, please share this video with as many people as possible. Thank you guys so much for watching. God bless you all, and have a